Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Kelly Wright Show, and it's a pleasure to have you. I'm Kelly, and I'm delighted that you are joining us tonight as we focus and take a bit unusual focus on what's happening with COVID-19, this global pandemic that's disrupting all of our lives and affecting us in terms of our health, as well as our wealth. And so tonight, my opening observations are this. If we can help each other as we travel on, then our living will never be in vain. And because of that, I want to take time out now to focus on what's happening to us mentally, physically, and spiritually. So I brought in three experts to help us do that, because each of them understand that if we can help each other move forward through this COVID-19 pandemic, we will be better for it. Not only better citizens, but better parents, better husband and wives, better children. And the most important thing is that we never grow bitter through this adversity, but we come out better. And those are my opening observations. So now let me introduce to you this wonderful panel that I have, and an unusual approach tonight, because we want to talk about our mental health and how we cope with COVID-19. It's so important that we zero in on increasing our awareness and also our self-awareness so that we can be better, as I've stated. So this panel discussion on coping with COVID-19, I've picked three of the best. And actually, I'm blessed because they actually picked me to come onto this show. So I'm delighted, first and foremost. Please welcome our panelists today. Family therapist Jane Marks, who is a colleague of mine at the Black News Channel. She's based in Tallahassee, Florida, which is the headquarters of BNC. And Jane is the host of Ladies Journal, which airs Monday through Friday on BNC at 5 p.m., just before my show comes on. And it's always a treat to see Jane working there. And she's doing so much throughout the Tallahassee area. Just a little bit of bragging rights. Her husband was mayor of Tallahassee, and they do a lot of good things there in Tallahassee, Florida. Also, Nikessa Craig, who is a licensed clinical social worker who practices in the Commonwealth of Virginia, a state that I'm very familiar with since I spent so much time there in my early days as a reporter and anchor. She is with the company Whole Journey, and they provide counseling, mental counseling, and a lot of therapy. And Nikessa is a very active person there in the community of Virginia. She operates in Richmond, as well as the Norfolk and Hampton Roads area. And we have a little bit of history and understanding that we both at one time lived in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm mad at her for that beautiful country. And then last but not least is Dr. Bryant. Dr. Cheyenne Bryant is really the impetus for this panel discussion, because several weeks ago, when Dr. Bryant and I met and had a discussion on this program, she struck something in me and said, we should talk about mental health more. And I said, well, let's have a panel discussion about it. But Dr. Bryant's mission is to spread her message and expertise on how to lead a healthier, happier, balanced, and more fulfilling life. And for years, she has basically shared her wisdom, awareness, mastery, and insight through her private practice out there in beautiful Los Angeles. She provides books, lectures, workshops, and assists individuals with life impairments and challenges. And I must add that she's been assisted by Ayanna Van Zant, Oprah Winfrey, Marianne Williamson, and many more. The list goes on. So you can see that we have three talented, beautiful, brilliant Black women who can really address how we cope with COVID-19. So ladies, let's get right into it. Thanks, first of all, for being on the program. And Jane, let me begin with you. You're a family therapist.
I am.
What are you hearing from families as they contend with the issues of unemployment, as they contend with the issues of the disruption of COVID-19? How is that impacting their psyche?
I think for most families that I'm seeing, because what's happening here in the South is that we're beginning to open up. And so those that are getting ready to go back into the workforce they're very anxiety ridden about exposure, what they're going to be exposed to once they go back into the offices themselves. The concerns that they have are, one, has everybody been tested? Will there be future testing? Two, will our employers provide us with PPE equipment, masks or sanitizers. There's a lot of anxiety about going back to work. I think just in navigating the day-to-day in terms of being at home, we Americans are back in our homes. And for the most part, actually, I'm seeing less anxiety at home, but more so, at least at this juncture, in going back to work. And so for those going back to work, there's so many concerns about, will my hours be decreased? Will they change the scheduling? What will my role be in the companies when I go back? Is state government am I going to be able to take vacation time or leave time in order to, if I'm fearful that people in my particular unit have been exposed to this virus? So I think these are some very real concerns.
Very real concerns indeed. And Akessa Craig, you're there in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that's also a southern state. And as you know, the governor has chosen to reopen most of that state except the counties and the cities that are in Northern Virginia, which border Washington, D.C. and the Maryland suburbs. And that's due to the density of population. So what kind of dynamic does that present mentally in coping with COVID-19 in Virginia and the nation's capital?
It's very similar to what Jane is expressing, which is I'm working with families now as we start to reopen. They're looking at what to do with childcare. How do we continue schooling? Also the financial impact of trying to find safe and affordable childcare, but working reduced hours. So a lot more anxiety. It's calling for a lot more creativity and problem solving, and really helping parents at this point learn how to teach their children coping skills, and learning how to really have honest and transparent conversations about these stressors that nobody really has all the answers to.
Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, you're in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a thriving, bustling city, and yet it's been shut down due to this COVID-19 pandemic. Who would have thought that this coronavirus would shut down a city of that size that has 10 million plus people? What are you finding to be the stress fractures there for family members, especially given the fact that the beaches, as you've told me, are now getting ready to reopen, and you know what a LA beach is like, any beach in Southern California. Does that pose some concern for you at all in terms of how people will adjust to that new normal?
Absolutely. So there's two sides to that, Kelly. Here in Los Angeles, you have people who are in fear, and as Jane mentioned, they have anxiety over the whole social distancing, ordinance. If people are going to really implement that and practice that, is that going to be enough for them to stay coronavirus free? Will it have an impact on not just them, but their entire household? And then you have others who are getting cabin fever, who are just bored. As we all know, that during this pandemic, the depression rate has skyrocketed. The domestic violence rate has skyrocketed. The divorce rate has skyrocketed. And so with those issues being something that has already obviously been pretty prevalent and being on the rise now due to this pandemic, people are going into survival mode. People are trying to figure out ways that they can survive in their home. And for some folks, if surviving means opening up just a beach to just get out for a fresh, breath of fresh air, or for a good walk, even if it's just for that, those parents are at home with their kiddos all day long and they just need to get out to get a breather. For some parents, especially here in LA, they're going, yes, as long as I wear my mask, as long as I social distance, as long as I can do that. Because right now, not all families are home, quarantining, going, yes, I don't have to work. Home is a safe place. For some folks, home is very unsafe. Mm-hmm. Home is a place where they are surviving. For a lot of folks, going back to work is something that they look forward to, because then they get their normalcy. And I want to take a look just at America as a whole, because I know that folks watching this are from every state, every city right, in the country. And I want to say that, in America, there's 2 million youth who are experiencing major depressive episodes. 2 million, okay? Oregon is the leading state of youth to experience major depressive episodes, with 16% of their youth experiencing this. 70%, Kelly, and everyone else on this call, of those youth are going untreated mental health illness. Stick with me. 10.3 million adults experience suicidal ideations with severe impairments. 10.3 million. 10 million of those adults in the whole US are going untreated. Untreated. That number is rising through this pandemic. Okay? Now, you have, say, you got about 10 million of those adults do have healthcare access. Yay. But guess what? The healthcare that they have is failing when it comes to the mental health sector of it. It's not enough. It's not enough. 70% of people report that they go to friends and family for de-stressors, for their depression or anxiety, help and assistance. And so when you talk about isolation or social distancing or stay at home order, that's 70% of people, if they are isolating and not staying connected, that are becoming anxiety prone. If they weren't already anxiety prone, that are starting to now exhibit, right, Jane? Starting to now exhibit depressive symptoms, who may have never had to. I have clients, Kelly, who come to me for business coaching, because I do both. I do personal development, business, professional development, and then we have our mental health sector at the Dr. Bryant Institute. They've been coming to me for 2 years for business coaching. All of a sudden now they're saying, Dr. Bryant, like I feel like I'm depressed. This is someone in 2 years who has never experienced depression or depressive symptoms. They're thriving people. They're business owners. They're rocking and rolling. They're parents. They're married. Their life, just on fire. Now they're saying, I'm going crazy. I'm feeling sad. I feel guilty.
Nikessa, what's happening in Virginia?
So I think in Virginia overall, our governor is a medical doctor by trade. And so I think that's a part of the reason why we have one of the longest, shelter in place orders. But I will say it seems as though the testing has been very slow and lacking. And so for that reason, our numbers are increasing, and it's starting to cause more anxiety at this point in people than it did on the very front end, because the numbers appear to be very low. One of the things that we're trying to do here is we're trying to make it very clear that a lot of insurance providers have actually waived fees due to COVID-19. So I'm asking everyone who has some sort of insurance, you typically would have a co-insurance, maybe you're underinsured, to make sure that you give your insurance company a call to see if they might actually be covering all the cost of mental health treatment. And Jane, I agree with you. We've done a pretty good job here with media exposure and social media, telling people, hey, these are hotlines, these are resources, give us a call, we'll talk to you for free. So that is something that's happening and that I like to see, especially because the testing doesn't seem it's been as rigorous as in other parts of the country.
Ladies, I'd like you to stay with me. I'm going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk about not just testing, but also contact tracing, but also making social contact with the people that need to hear from you the most. As Dr. Cheyenne Bryant was talking about, as you've been talking about, Jane, as well as Nikessa. So we'll be back with more of this program, Coping with Anxiety, right here on the show after this break. Welcome back to the program. So we're having a really riveting down-home discussion, a down-home talk, y'all, about the anxiety that we're experiencing from COVID-19. I think the three ladies, Nikessa Craig, who is from Virginia, licensed clinical social worker, family therapist Jane Marks, who is there in Tallahassee at the Black News Channel, and of course, my good friend Dr. Cheyenne Bryant out in Los Angeles. Ladies, the one thing I got from our opening conversation is that the anxiety is real. And the families dealing with the anxiety, Dr. Cheyenne, are in peril. And one thing you talked about that I think we need to open up more is the fact that there are young people within those families who are stuck. I've talked to some of them, and they have outlets being provided for them from perhaps a faith-based company like InterVarsity, where they're reaching out and they're doing things on Zoom, creative things. But for those families that don't have that, especially families in low-income areas or impoverished areas, uh, it's difficult to get to them. And my fear is that some of them will fall through the cracks from the anxiety being so real.
And to piggyback off that, Kelly, you're absolutely correct. And this is exactly why the Dr. Bryant Foundation, we did a whole laptop computer giveaway in Los Angeles County or San Pedro, Wilmington, my NAACP jurisdiction, because of what you said. Low-income families don't have access to computers, to laptop. In addition to that, we gave free internet for all low-income family households, because what is the point of having a computer or a laptop if you don't have Wi-Fi, so that they have access to be able to keep their little selves busy, even the parents. Another thing that I found with my adolescent clients is that they don't have age-appropriate subjects, conversations, and activities going on in the home right now during the pandemic, because they're not able to get out with their friends. And it's polarity. Mama bear and Papa bear need age-appropriate conversations that don't include the kiddos, and the kids also need age-appropriate conversations and activities that they can just do with a 16-year-old, with a 12-year-old. I know one of my clients, she's 16, and she's like, I've always been grateful for our sessions, but never as much as I am now, because her and I have age-appropriate 16-year-old sessions and dialogue, and that is helping her get through the week. And she is looking forward to our sessions weekly because of that. In addition to the anxiety that's coming from not having tests, from what Nakissa mentioned, you're right. People were having, especially in the inner city, having a lot of anxiety about why are there not available tests here? How do I know if I am asymptomatic and I am not going to, carry this over to my kids or to my husband, to my families, because I don't know if I have it, I don't have tests. That's exactly why, Kelly, the Dr. Bryant Foundation, and partnered up with the Carson Mayor, Albert Robles, who was on your show, I think last week. And we opened up a COVID-19 testing center right here in Carson, in the inner city, where we got Black and brown people who need testing, who need treatment, who need education, who need assistance. And we are there to provide the testing. We also travel to homes if they're senior citizens or they think that they have it and they don't want to come out and be exposed. We also got mass PPE gear that's donated, so we can provide our Terminal Island Federal Prison that's right here in San Pedro in our backyard, who is the mostly affected. They're at 67% of all of their staff and their inmates that are COVID-19 positive. Yeah. They're rising 900% a day. I mean, this stuff is bananas. And let's not talk about 13.3% of folks in Los Angeles in America are African American with a mental health diagnosis. 11% of those, I got you, Jane, I'm gonna let you go. And 11% of those come on, girl. 11% of those African Americans do not have healthcare access. Not that they have healthcare access. Mental health care it's failing. They don't have healthcare access. 11% of a 13.3% of diagnosed African Americans. And lastly, and Jane, you have it. It's all yours. A lot of African American kids, Black and brown, let me stop saying Black and brown kids, are either under or overdiagnosed. Underdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, right? This is the issue, because if we go back dated to how psychology and the DSM was first created, it wasn't created culturally competent. It wasn't created for the Black young boy, the brown young boy or girl, or the Black or brown adult woman or male. It wasn't. And not that it was a problem back then, but it is now. Because now you're having to diagnose folks and you have to be culturally competent when you do it. But let me go back to kids being under or overdiagnosed. When that happens, when they're underdiagnosed, then they're not seen as having an emotional disturbance or having an emotional concern. So they don't qualify for an IEP in school, okay? Which is important for kids who have emotional disturbance, who have a proper diagnosis. And so they're in class with kids that they need more special care. If you don't have an IEP, you don't qualify for the special circumstances that those kiddos will get it. If you are overdiagnosed, now you're put in a classroom with kids who are not at the same grade level as you. And so before you know it, water seeks its own level. You're going to decline when it comes to your academics and your education and in your social skills. So there's so much we could talk about, and I can go on and on, but I want Jane to come in, and I want you to, I'm tagging you in, girl. Go for it.
All right. And let me just say this. I think you are so right on point about every single thing that you just talked about. But you know what I do? With patients that are now experiencing anxiety, I give them 4 recommendations, because you're right. They're not going to have access to wonderful mental health services like you girls, you young girls, and I can say that are able to generate. But if they really follow through on the following things: 1, and you can do this even if you're stuck inside of home, if 45 minutes worth of exercise, if your diet has some degree of protein on a regular basis, as long as you have access to that, you eliminate the caffeine, and more importantly, you do some sort of meditation. That will at least mitigate some of what's going on. These are hands-on practical strategies, whether or not you have access to mental health care or not. What my experience is with most kids, and particularly kids of color, and especially when I'm seeing them on the front end, is that I can almost get 40 to 45% improvement in functioning, no therapy, as long as they're taking good care of themselves. They don't have the basic knowledge. So if we can teach that over and over, you must have this balance in your life. You can at least help with the anxiety. And again, the anxiety is real. And when you know you're not in this by yourself, it makes such a huge difference. And so what we do here is we connect kids with other kids. And these are kids who don't have access to treatment. And if they're following through on those recommendations, you just can't imagine the improvement in functioning.
The one thing I've learned, and going back to a point that you had made in the previous segment, Jane, about the middle of the country, Dr. Gary Slutkin is an epidemiologist who used to work with the World Health Organization. And he has reached out to various mentoring groups to have that access to youth, so that the youth are reaching out to youth and they have a mentor structure, just as we've had on this program with the Boys and Girls Club. I spoke to Jim Clark, the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of America, and the great work that they're doing by helping youth get together through virtual communication and even providing it. And to your point, Dr. Bryant, when kids are in school, and here's the problem, Nikessa, kids are not in school right now. So as a result of that, they are trying to adjust to this abnormal new normal with their parents at home, and we don't know what kind of family dynamic they have, and there may not even be a family structure there. So what are you hearing on your end there in Virginia, and how do you help kids in the dire straits if they have no one to reach out to? Because that's an open door to mental anxiety, depression, and getting back to what Dr. Bryant alluded to earlier, or not alluded to, but directly said it, that kids can be prone to thoughts about suicide.
Right, and that's such a good question. And Dr. Bryant and Jane, you all bring up extremely valid barriers to a lot of people out there regarding access. I will say, here in Virginia, within my clients, what we're noticing is, yes, school was so instrumental. The kids were definitely overwhelmed with the schoolwork and all the demands. But for those that don't have the structure of it in this place, we are looking at anxiety, but we're also looking at issues with basic needs like lunches and food. And it's really exposing a lot of the insecurities within our systems. With a lot of my families, if they don't have access to the Wi-Fi, the computers, we're just going phone. You know, can you get on the phone, and can I just support you in that kind of way? I think it's really important for all of us that are in the mental health professional, though, to really take a look at specific ways in which we can jump over barriers and hurdles. So removing reasons why we're not flexible with scheduling, taking a look at really allowing for hardships, uninsured people to come into the process. When I'm able to get a parent on the phone, right, who may be overwhelmed and they really feel like they don't have the skills to quite really be responsive and open to their children's needs, I'm working with them on actually teaching them the skill. I'll say the most basic and easy skill that a lot of people can benefit from when they're struggling with anxiety is really learning how to just breathe.
Ladies, I'm thanking you. I'm going to take a break real quick and come back. There are a couple of topics that we still need to address because there's so much we can do, and we're devoting the bulk of my show today to coping with COVID-19. And certainly what we're talking about with Nikessa Craig, licensed clinical social worker there in Virginia, Jane Marks, family therapist there in Tallahassee, Florida, also a member of Black News Channel, and Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, psychology expert and life coach out there in Los Angeles. Certainly what we're talking about, I believe, is really hitting home and hopefully impacting the lives of our viewers who will then, and I suggest this to all of you viewers, take this, run with it, learn from it, listen to what these ladies are saying. We're going to come back with more as we drill down on the issue of substance abuse. That's next. Welcome back to the program. So we've been having a very candid discussion, and I'm learning a lot from my three guests. Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, psychology expert and a life coach, and also president of the San Pedro NAACP. We're going to talk about what she's doing with that a little bit later on the show. Then we have family therapist Jane Marks, a colleague of mine at the Black News Channel, host of Ladies Journal there in Tallahassee, where our headquarters is. And then we have Nikessa Craig, who is a licensed clinical social worker with Whole Journey, which is a counseling and therapy establishment there in Virginia. And, you know, we've had a very candid discussion about what's happening to the family, about the fact that anxiety is real, about the fact that our teenagers, and Dr. Brian, I like the way you say the kiddos, the little ones, what they're going through. And my wife is a teacher. She's an early childhood education teacher, and she has told me about the stress that she sees in her 5-year-olds, and she's doing it through social distancing. And one of the things you pointed out, Nikessa, is that parents should be able to reach out to their teachers. But here's something else that's going on, and we should not overlook this, and that is substance abuse. As you know, some states have kept their liquor stores open so that people can have some recreation and have some access to doing something that will help not inebriate them, but give them a break. But then there is the fact that substance abuse is so real. Dr. Bryant, have you seen a rise in that level? I know you've talked about divorce levels rising, depression levels rising. If substance abuse is rising by people imbibing or whatever, like illicit drugs or things of that nature, which they still have access to, are you seeing a rise in that? And what can be done about that?
Excellent, excellent question. So this is a thing. Data reports that substance abuse recovery is actually improving, not mental health diagnosis associated with the substance abuse, because in my 12 plus years of experience of doing this work, I have never seen a person have a substance abuse issue and not have a dual diagnosis or a triple diagnosis. I've never seen it. Okay, never. Now, the cells of the substance, alcohol, and we have to throw in there cannabis, is still a substance, although it's legal, I believe, in most states, right, Jane? The cell of cannabis has skyrocketed. Yes. And the sale of alcohol has skyrocketed. Um, I'm not sure. What I believe is this. I think the data as far as substance abuse recovery improving, I believe that's true prior to pandemic. I don't believe that they have recent data that they have been able to even report on, or even be able to get, sample populations to run these tests on to see what is a substance abuse improvement rate, or how to scale that now during the pandemic. I think that in a couple months to come, we may have some really fresh data on that. But as of now, I can say the clients that I have that are in inpatient homes, that are dual diagnosed, that are having substance abuse and so forth, are they using more? Yes. I've had some that have spiraled. I have some that have, AWOL from their inpatient recovery home, and who want to go home so that they can use, and so that they can be in the comfort of whatever home is. And so data shows that it's improving. I don't like to give out data that's not for sure, but I do want to say from my experience, a lot of my clients are having a very challenging time, even if it's just some that cut out cannabis, cut out weed, with not wanting to administer that substance and be in a place of normalcy for them. Because anyone who's anxiety prone or substance prone, when you take them out of what is normal for them, okay, they want to go back to what can soothe them. Oftentimes substance
It's a self-medication.
it's a self-medication,
Right.
Jane. It's a soothing medication. It's like a kid sucking on their thumb, or a kid who still wants to be on mom's boob, although the baby's 2 or 3 years old and breastfeeding time is over. But that's just soothing for them. And so trying to get people to create what we talked about before, Kelly, a new healthy narrative during this new normalcy is something that I work with my clients as to what is your narrative. Let's take out normal. Let's create a narrative that works for you in this pandemic. Let's pick out new things for you to do that work. Meditation is key. I love that meditation was brought up, because every one of my clients, from kid, adolescents to adults, I am pro meditate, not because I read some funky book on it that says it's amazing, but because it has literally changed my life as a young woman into a young adult. It has changed my life. It has changed my clients' lives. When I do my workshops, we do a healing meditation. I have clients that couldn't sit for 2 minutes and meditate, now come into the session saying, Doc, can we start off with the meditation? And I'm going, absolutely, champ, you got it. Of course we can. It changes the thought process. Meditation slows down the neurons in our brain. It fires up serotonin and dopamine. And so it gets you to a creative space while it equally relaxes you. Then you're able to have clarity. You're able to have a clear thought process. It strengthens your internal locus, which is your ability to be able to choose and be strong in the constitution of self. Meditation has so many fundamental principles that are life-changing and extremely important. And I always say meditation is not eyes closed and palms up. Meditation can be just sitting still and in calmness, taking a walk, but it means that you're shutting everything out, and it's just you and self and you. And you two are building a relationship, which is the most important and most biggest investment you will ever make, is the relationship with yourself. Income self-awareness, income self-love, and we produce who we are. If we have those things, then I always say we see in others who we are, not who they are. And so I can see 3 beautiful people on this Zoom call who are amazing and who are compassionate and who are absolutely empowering, because that's how I view myself. But if my lens and my optics are eclipsed with distorted thinking and suicidal ideations, then I also see darkness in you all. And it's important to embed that with my clients when I'm talking about shaping their narrative, so we can shift their perspective so they can start to see the reality that's going to create joy and balance and happiness, and create a life that can be substance free. It's not that easy when you're talking about substance abuse, but it can be done.
And Shine, you are so right. But for those people, I think also that are really struggling with substance issues, I think like Kelly was referring to, I think he is right. And like Shine, this is also anecdotal. Those that are struggling with substance issues during this time have indeed, their anxiety levels are increased. And so therefore, not only they're more at risk they are participating more. And this is anecdotal. This is not based on any kind of research. And I think for those people that are at least willing to connect in therapy, they're going to respond to every single thing that you have just said. But if they're not, then what we need to do with those people, again, is to inform them, these are the resources that are available to you, that those that are more successful are more likely to be involved with, with AA meetings or NA meetings. They are going to be more successful because, like everyone else, they're all experiencing the same level of anxiety. But I think for your patients, they have got one heck of a resource. Now, if we could clone the two of you girls and just put you all over the country, that would be great. But I think, that being said, that I think for the average person who is struggling with substance issues, they still need to know what's out there, that, that this is here for me. This is what I can do at this point during this time. And there are in certain communities, and I hate to keep going back to this community here, in the Southeast, but I'm seeing this at least in the Panhandle. There are added resources for people who are experiencing substance issues. They've opened up different units. They've opened up different resources. They've opened up different counselors. They're doing virtual meetings, in terms of the NA meetings and the AA meetings, and which historically they would have never done because of the issue of privacy. So I think what this COVID-19 has done is that because of these experiences, we've seen new experiences reemerge, or new resources or new solutions. Now, I'm curious as to what's going on in Virginia.
We're hearing, I'm hearing so much good from all three of you, and we'll take a break, and when we come back, I don't know if we can wrap this up, but we have to wrap it up at some point because we have to get on with other programs, but we have to do this again. We certainly have to do it again. So when we return with family therapist Jane Marks, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, psychology expert and life coach, and licensed clinical social worker Nikessa Craig, I want to talk about one word that we have not heard enough of throughout this COVID-19 pandemic, and that's empowerment. How do we empower people to take their power back? And we're going to talk about that and what that would do. And that's exactly what I think the three of you are saying. You're empowering people through your counseling, through your therapy, through your advice, through your wisdom. And we'll talk about that after this. Welcome back to the program. I don't know about you, but I'm having a delightful time learning from, you've heard of three wise men. I have three wise women. They are bringing some salient information to each and every one of us for the times in which we find ourselves in. And the one word that I find missing in all of the news briefings that we see, in all of the presidential coronavirus task force, the mixed messaging that comes out of that, there's one message that I think needs to be crystal clear, and that is the message of empowering African Americans, people of color, and for that matter, everybody who's dealing with this COVID-19. But because it disproportionately impacts our community, it hits close to home. We've seen it. We've seen the hurt. We've seen the disparities. How do we mentally get to that place of empowerment?
I think that's such a great point, and I think that is such a powerful message. I feel, within my own professional experience, and one of the reasons why I got into it was that I think everybody needs a second chance. I think every day has the potential to be a new start, a fresh chapter. But the reality is that we would have to do something different in order to experience that fresh start. It doesn't just typically fall from the sky and land in our laps. So that's the reality. I really encourage people to be the experts in your own life. Know what you're feeling, know your story, know what you've been through, validate that. Don't look for confirmation of that anywhere else. Be your expert and be your own advocate.
I think the whole idea of running your own race, being in charge of your own train, trusting yourself, trusting your instincts, and if you're just a little bit challenged, then network and find out exactly who else is experiencing the same thing you are, and make sure as you're doing this make sure you love and take care of your own self. I think in doing so, in holding yourself with grace, embracing your imperfections, we're going to make it through this whole experience.
And Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, that's not selfishness. That's actually taking care of yourself so that you can, if you're blessed, then you can be a blessing to others, right?
Faith over fear. Kelly, we've said this. Faith over fear. Faith over fear. How big is your God? How big is your God? I say that to myself and my clients. How big is your God? Faith over fear. Peace over panic. These are just small words that when you feel the panic, you just remove that and implement it with peace. Back to the breathing that Nikisa said. When you feel that panic, breathe. Breathing gives you peace. You don't have to try to get it. Breathing will give you peace. And then be kind to yourself. Stay connected, but be kind to yourself. Be compassionate with you. You're doing an amazing job.
So thank you, Nikisa Craig, licensed clinical social worker there in Virginia. Jane Marks, family therapist, host of Ladies Journal and Black News Channel, my colleague. Good to have you on. And my dear friend, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. I got mad love for all of you.
So, thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
It was such a pleasure.
And we will do this again. I can't thank you enough again. And for those of you watching, remember what they've said and what I've been saying on this show all along. You've definitely heard all of us talk about it today. But while we're in social distancing and physical distancing, let us never, never, never resort to isolating ourselves. But pick up the phone, call somebody, get up in the morning, pray, meditate, get your butt moving, exercise. And at the end of the day, reflect on your day and thank God for making it through. We'll be back with more of the show after this. Welcome back to tonight's program. I hope you've enjoyed our guest on tonight. Very special look on how we cope with COVID-19. And as all three of them have stated, the anxiety is real. But we can learn to maneuver through this by having faith over fear, hope over despair, and love over bitterness. That will be the light that will see us through the darkness. Hopefully you've been righted, ignited, and united to keep spreading not fear, but dropping knowledge on each other and spreading love, freedom, and peace. Speaking of that, let me leave you now with a good friend of mine, Bobby Caldwell, and What You Won't Do for Love. Look out for the surprise guests. Peace out, y'all.